Well, Evi, it's my great pleasure to be having this conversation with you today. We're being filmed, so there'll be viewers, and for their benefit, I'm David Jones, and I've been associated with the forum for a number of years now, supporting the organizational leaders track. But I also, this last year, actually had a bit part supporting you.
Which was excellent.
Thank you. In the year-round mentoring program for organizers of Christian events. And our conversation is focused on how to create events with impact. And again, just want to introduce you. I've known you for a number of years. I know you as somebody who has a great capacity to gather and infuse and energize people for mission purposes. And I know that you've run a number of events, most recently, I think 4 congresses for MissionNet. And until this last year, you were the director for MissionNet. And I know, reading a bit more about you, that events have been an important part of your life, really, from a teenager.
Yeah, I from actually being 10 years old.
Yeah, well, let's start there. I mean, what part of events played in your life, and when did that start happening? What impact on you?
Well, I know in the history of a young person, events are very important. I mean, statistics show that people become Christians often at the events, and then that sort of is part of their journey. And I think that looking back, I mean, I had to analyze my own sort of events, I partook in. I thought, well, this is amazing, because I remember being 10 years old. I became a Christian at that event. It was in the Olympic Stadium of Berlin, 30,000 people, amazing speakers, and the passion I had for God, that was it, And actually, my twin sister did the same commitment just a minute later, so we found each other in the crowd later. That was a pivotal point in my life. I think, of course, the commitment to God, but also seeing thousands of others being committed to the same cause was amazing. And then later, I felt like God leading me into missions. I was wondering, how can He use my life? Is there a bigger calling for the world? And then I went to a TEMA conference, youth mission conference for Europe. And then I was actually just turning 16.
Okay. TEMA, can you unpack that a little?
Yeah, well, it was a forerunner of a mission that they tried to mobilize young Europeans for missions across Europe. And they started actually just right after 74, Billy Graham did Lausanne. That was already, a massive conference with such a huge impact. So then on these sort of premise that it like something for students and theologians, and also then saying, how do we reach that young generation? Creating a new mission movement, that was the big thing, So when I went there, with 16 years old, could hardly speak any English, but, seeing these 12,000 people from all across Europe, I mean, did something to my heart. My understanding of the word changed, the way that God would look at me. I felt, there are moments I feel so insecure when you know that you have a, role to play in that world, that God wants you to be part of changing the world. It was eye-opening. So then through that, I attended other events, but I think that would be 2 of the most remarkable impacts on my life through events.
Okay, so impact on you. We then fast forward, you start to organize quite significant events yourself. How do you then think about impact? How do you approach to run an event with impact?
Well, I think I was, later on I was intrigued, would any of these events cause any long-lasting impact? I was actually wondering, because it helped me to go into action, would it do the same for others? And I realized actually there's a passion. So I actually became an event manager through the Chamber of Commerce, and others have tried to study on that. And I realized that there's not much written on that topic. I mean, from the secular point or even from the Christian point of view. And I thought, man, we're spending millions of euros on events in the Christian scene, but I don't see any long-lasting impacts. Or at least I saw there are like no tools around. And so I tried to study that out. Actually, I did my dissertation on that last year for my master's in Europe, on Europe, and trying to analyze, even my own conferences, would they have any long-lasting impact? And the Oxford Dictionary, says looking at impact, says the words countable or uncountable effect on somebody or something for a result.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, what does that mean for me in my own definition? I thought, okay, I'm looking for a powerful effect, on a situation or somebody which leads to a result, and that result for me has to be some kind of action. It can't just stay with, what I've heard in my
Yeah.
heart or something, but it has to somewhere lead somewhere.
Can I just reflect on that, what I'm hearing? I mean, many of us can think impact is, did I get a buzz at the event? Did it stir
Yeah.
me? But you're saying that's not what I'm looking for at all in impact. I'm thinking what's happening in 2, 3, 5,
Yeah.
10 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, I realize that we as event organizers, we have dreams. We have there's passion behind why we, use so many resources, personnel, and whatever to create an event. And then often we have no step as a follow-up afterwards. So I was trying to look into that. What could that mean, So actually now saying, okay, what are the various kind of events which we can, impact, what we can actually see, and then how could I apply that to my own events?
Now, I know you did a series of events with MissionNet, so they were every 2 years. You're looking for impact. You want to track that. What did that look like? What did you do in between events, in lead-ups to next events? What did you do to try and track and increase impact?
Yeah. Well, maybe first I can maybe say that I try to then study what kind of impact is out there.
Okay.
So I think that was like looking at the first event, I did a survey afterwards. So I was trying to trace the cognitive changes, so see, when we talk about a missionary lifestyle, the view of missions and so, has it changed? Has my relationship changed with God? Do I read the Bible more? Do I pray more? Do I give more, into mission? So I found out that in the secular setting as such, they only have two kind of impacts. And one is the economic impact and one is the non-economic impact. And so everything which is sort of written so far on that is about the financial impact. They analyze if events have an impact on a region. Do they create jobs? Is there, I don't know, some kind of effect through that on the city, that kind of thing. And they have some kind of measurements, how to do that. And every country disagrees on how to measure that impact, but this is how it goes today. There's no unified voice on that. And then the non-economic impact, they also call that the business value of meetings. We're saying, okay, what is out there? What is my return of objectives, my return of investment? Is it just about, gaining some money from doing an event, or is that even more? And so the first few studies were done over the past few years from Australia and others, FOCLID, these guys were trying to look into, do events actually create new job opportunities? Is there any networking coming out of it? So I was using these resources to then say, okay, what have they done? What we could do at MissionNet, or even that I'm now doing with Lausanne, looking at their conference and then with younger leaders and saying, okay, what are the impacts? And so I was actually now, you can do various things. I tried to look into, could there be an evaluation a year after? Could I maybe do some interviews? So I tried to combine that even now at the last one, I think I improved the most. I did a survey before the event and a survey right after to actually see if there are any cognitive changes, because we talk about mission lifestyle, which means there's some action in there, but of course you need to start somewhere. I think the hardest thing for me is that how do you measure spiritual impact? It's very hard because you can only see spiritual impact through action, right? Someone can tell you that they read the Bible more, but you need to see, is the Bible more in use, or they talk about, oh, the world needs my finances, but I can only do that when I look at their purse and have they actually, spent more than before, They talk about reaching the homeless. I want to see, are they now involved in projects? So and some people think that, it's questionable, that you can't sort of look at impact through God's eyes. But I think, man, we need to do something here.
Yeah. How do you engage people who've attended the event to get that kind of level of feedback from them?
I think a lot depends on how much trust you have built with people. People would much more likely respond to your surveys if they somehow have an emotional connection with you. I've learned through my research on that you are lucky when you get 2 to 5% of feedback. So every time I thought, if I can sort of triple this or something, I'm going to be very good. But I often got more than 25% or even higher.
Wow.
And actually, I did one with Lausanne last year, and which I thought was one of the best conference ever, because we had a process of 1 year before the event. So I always think that I've learned that if you sandwich an event into doing something before and after, I mean, I'm looking forward to see the results, of course, now a year later that I'm doing a next follow-up. But because we had to do something each month before the event, when I did the first survey just 3 days before the event of Lausanne Younger Leaders in Jakarta, I had 95% of response. And that was not because of me and my questionnaire. It was because these young people had trusted the leadership of Lausanne, of this Congress team, said, we're going to do that for you and with you.
Yeah.
So it's that buy-in, it's that kind of ownership somehow.
Yeah. So if I were an event organizer or a new event organizer, what would you say to me to encourage me or to explain to me what you mean about the preparation in and then the follow on out from the event? What would I need to do?
Well, I think the first thing which I find very important is that you know your vision and your mission.
Okay.
And I realized now walking with these event mentees through ELF and so on, that these guys do amazing stuff. I mean, they reach thousands of young people across Europe, but they don't often have something in writing. So I was trying to say, what is your vision? And then how can you put that into a mission statement? And then the next step is, outcomes. What is it that I want to see? And so I said there are different ways of looking at outcomes, but there are target groups, about the audience, the participants who come. What about, I don't know, involving the service team, the volunteers? That could be a different group. The exhibitors or someone. And say, okay, let's see, let's measure what is out there. What have they gained from that? And so having these outcomes then helps me in the end to actually come up with any kind of measurements, I mean, if people... Normally, they're asked after an event, how did you like the program? Did you like the food and bad and so on? Then this is not enough. It just gives you the first impression, right? It's important, but I think there's nothing there with cognitive or behavior changes and so on. So I say, guys, have something in place. So one of my friends has said that if you have nothing in place after an event, like within the first 72 hours planned, don't do any event.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, oh my goodness, this is like tough, But he said, you are wasting the energy created, God has been speaking, but if you don't do any follow-up, you know how it is, that there comes distraction, there are voices in your head telling you, that decision you took, was just out of the emotions, and was it really God I was hearing, and so on. And so it just evaporates.
So what have you learned is good to do in that critical 72-hour period?
I was trying to have an email ready immediately, so that I already had it actually ready before the event, but I would maybe adjust that on the last day, sort of to relate to the content. And then I would engage immediately in social media. So while they're already on their way home, do something to encourage them. I remember, that we talk about, we wanting actions. And I remember that at one time we gave them, Bibles, like portions of the Bible, and said, one is for you and one is for the other person. So on the way back home, we said, could you do that? Because some of these guys travel, across Europe, right? It takes them 2-3 days on the bus or something, So then they did, and then reports come in, and we ask for stories, I mean, you get feedback through the service, but we ask for stories because these stories are so powerful. They engage with each other, and you see, a community growing there. So I think, I'm very conscious that I think I messed up, once or twice, but I think each conference we have learned to do it slightly better and got input from other conferences as well.
So thinking about what you've learned, where things didn't work well, where you may have messed up, whether it's in the area of tools you've adopted, timings in which you do things, can you give some of your key lessons of doing it better?
Yeah, I think one of the first things I did more consciously is for Missionet and other events, or even other ministry I'm involved in, I attend conferences. So I try, to go there, not as a spy. I try to get something out of it for my own spirit, but also looking at the way they do logistics. I remember having gone to Teen Street, or the OM festival for young people in the summer, and I don't know, Ariane and I, a friend of mine, we did like 100 interviews, and I mean, I don't know, we wrote about 500 job descriptions, I mean, that's exaggeration probably. It's only 100, But I mean, we interviewed so many people to learn from the guys who are much better than we were,
Yeah.
So then I would go to Willow Creek and others say, what are you doing? What is your crisis manual, your evacuation plan? So every time I'm engaging somewhere, I think, let's meet the guys behind the stage and let's pick their brain. And so even I had the chance of going to various youth mission conferences worldwide. And I mean, some of these guys, some of it helps you to know that you're not doing too bad.
Yeah.
And some of it just also shows you, my goodness, what can you do with limited resources, with such a vast army of volunteers. And it's revolutionizing.
And how did people respond? How do the people at these events? So let's say I'm thinking of doing this, but I might think, oh, I don't think I can ask them that, or will they be protective? How did you find people responded when you were learning from them?
Yeah. But I think in general, I don't know, I have lots of favor, or I am very naive as well, I just go and just ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know when they're very stressed.
Yeah.
And, and there's an emergency somewhere, that you should maybe wait and then just have an appointment. But I've never had any problems, and there was hardly any situation that someone would not open their books. But once we improved, I also then became very generous with others, because I think people were very generous with me. I probably think through the times of Missionet and with Lausanne and other events, we have probably had another 15 other conferences worldwide, or national conferences, and saying you can have all our timelines and budgets and job descriptions. I'm happy to walk that through with you.
Okay.
That's also probably why I love to now have all these event mentees here,
Yeah.
So we're just sharing our resources and actually learn from each other's mistakes.
Okay. So if I'm listening or watching this interview,
Yeah.
it's possible for me to make contact.
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
And I think even doing that research last year has somehow even more given me a passion to look deeper, and also just just even talking about that.
Yeah.
I don't know, last year I was able to have another 10 conferences, but just because of not just doing the logistical or program stuff, which I think is very important, but actually, and I'm now much more focused on impact. So trying to say, okay, we've done these surveys. I've learned from Urbana in the States and from Mia, South Africa. So these are surveys I know work. So I have passed them on to others, and they can translate them, and they do stuff with it, whatever they want,
Evi, picking up on that, can I invite you to perhaps go down to a deeper level now on how you measure impact, the tools you use, how you identify the outcomes? Can you unpack it a bit more for us? What does that look like in practice?
Yeah. Well, there are not too many tools on the market to really know how will they address the impact. That's the sad thing, That is such a relatively new field of research that, except that they have done these studies in Australia, nothing is there. So I think whatever we do, we hit new grounds here, So it's sometimes a bit hard, because I would rather learn from people who have gone before us and are much, much better.
So you're having to pioneer to an extent.
Actually, yes, that's true. And so actually I thought I need to do some more and actually start my PhD on that. I don't know, trying to look at tools and see if they could actually be useful in event impact measuring. But what I think are some easy ones, is just doing polls. You ask even during a meeting, what did you like? How, the response could be just a yes, no, so it's not deep, but it gives you that some kind of indication, or putting up Facebook pages, questions and questionnaires and surveys, I think give you a huge range of looking at impact. So I think once I got the interviews done, I realized that there are different levels of impact. So I knew there was like cognitive impact, because I thought that was clear somehow,
Can you just define that? For some of us, we hear the word cognitive.
Yeah.
Can you express that in another way, what we mean by that?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's looking at the like the mental capacity that, for example, we say we want you to have a bigger heart for Europe. That's one of the outcomes we have, and then we have to push the word Europe or the context of Europe through prayer and whatever we do from the stage. So in the end, actually, what you could do, if you were very thorough, you could count how many times the word Europe was mentioned from the stage in sermons and whatever, then to see has it got any impact on them, that they actually repeat that more, or that they, we ask them, has your heart been enlarged for Europe? Have you, what was God doing in regards to Europe? And so we see a rise there. So there could be a correlation here. I mean, you have to go very deep to analyze that, and I'm not sure I'm the right one here yet, but is trying to see, is that, causing any sort of Bible understanding, for example, is there, what have we heard in the sermons, do I now understand the Bible better? Has my relationship with God changed through that? So that would be one part of cognitive. And then what I found out, next to the spiritual impact and the actions taken, I found out that there's an emotional impact, which I completely had not on my radar. I just completely just lost it, or even never occurred to me that the power of events as such, the atmosphere of bringing young Christians together from like all across Europe or all across the world or whatever it is in your national or regional context, there is such a power in just coming together and fellowshipping around the Word of God and the discipleship mechanism, which might, be able to happen there. So I thought, I need to do some more on that. But I think maybe that's probably looking into, I don't know, sociology, psychology, or so to get some more insights here.
So we're looking both at how do you measure the impact, and you talk about surveys and polls and yes, no, and but you also went there back into the experience in the event itself, and you draw attention to there is an emotional impact. Perhaps I could ask you about that. What have you learned helps to increase, let's call it emotional engagement of the participants at an event?
Well, I think one of the things which I did was looking, not just me, there's a whole team who helped me on that, looking at some of the motivations why people come to a conference. And like with MissionNet, the tagline is Mission and Lifestyle. So I wondered, the people who come, are they actually interested in missions? And we found out that 1/4 of them actually came because of missions. The rest came because they wanted to get encouragement. Some came just because they wanted to make new European friends.
Right.
Oh, this is a very different, agenda than I had, So I realized that we actually need to journey with people towards the goal we have set as our outcomes. And so I think if we take this already, and I think we have made some progress, that will be amazing, So it's trying to see who is there, and then to define how can we then bring them another step further. And I think one of the things I've learned through being at various events is the experiential piece in there, that you have to provide within the big framework of an event. You need to provide small units where you have your own kind of family going on during a conference, where loads of it can be digested, discussed, prayed for, and then have experiences through an event where you engage, I don't know, with another mentor, where you can do something around your giftings. I mean, it depends on the motivation again, and also on the outcomes. If you just do a festival and you want to entertain young ones, that's just as fair, but you might have different measurements there in place than when you want to go really deep, you know. And I think my passion is to do events across Europe, wherever they take place, that they bring transformation of our young people to, be firm in their faith and be radical in what they believe and stand up for the truth. And so you cannot foster that just through a music festival, And I think there's something I'm learning at the moment, researching, that it seems to be also that you need a sort of time length on events to actually go a bit deeper. You could have a concert for 2 or 3 hours. It can be very emotional and great, where they might very little come out of it. And somehow I think there's a time between 2 to 3 days, it seems, that you have more time to impact. If you really want to go deep into some biblical knowledge and application and experience, you can't just do it in a day. So I realized that kind of sort of staying with each other, having time to relax, and then you breathe again, then you hear something more, has been very powerful.
Evi, if I could reflect back some of the things I'm hearing, and you can see if I'm understanding rightly, I'm hearing something quite multifaceted. I'm hearing that you need to understand motivations of why people come to your event, and it may not be what you think it is.
True, absolutely.
And I'm hearing it's like you're taking them on a journey. Some are there for, this is what we're here for, others are not there for that, but they could go on a journey to get there.
Yeah.
So you're interacting with them, you're understanding.
Yeah.
Then I'm hearing there's different phases to an event, different types and modes. You say, find your family, time to be in a smaller group. So I can hear you're thinking about that. And duration, to have impact. You mentioned this 2 to 3 day.
Yeah, so it seems to be that there's something there. When I talk to people that actually now prolong it by a day often, to say, oh, you were just hitting a critical sort of time.
Yeah.
But to see some more, I mean, it's the same like that. We don't just commit to Jesus because we hear him once preached to us, It's something, the reoccurring, that truth can settle in, go deep. And I don't just believe that God loves me. I need to hear that more. I need to experience that. I need other people to affirm that, that kind of, it's wider than just, bam. I mean, sometimes it just worked like that. Praise God for these miracles, but yeah.
So it's making me think, I could say, I'm going to do an event, and my focus is I've got to get the right speakers, I've got to get the right content, but I might ignore all of the other factors that create the overall experience for the person coming to the event. And what I'm hearing from you is you have to understand a lot more and pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, and I also wonder if the pull factor in our today's society, and especially in Europe, young people look for authenticity, and integrity. And so often they don't just look for the big shots up on stage. So program is evaluated, but in the general ranking, it is probably just as equal as meeting people from another nation and having a mentoring talk.
So can I invite you, because you've done a number of big events, you've surveyed, you've tried. What has come out as the things that have most impacted people at events? You're saying it's not necessarily the big speaker.
Yeah.
What does the evidence show you?
Well, I just think it shows the same as the motivation of people who come. I mean, will be even able to change by the end of the time they have actually come. Like that, I see actually people becoming Christians at events, which I thought, that would be already Christians, so that would be, it's a very different outcome. And then leading them on this journey. I'm not.
You mentioned the mentoring.
Yeah, so I think there's something there which I think people need to. I think God has different ways of speaking to us, and not everyone loves to worship in a big crowd. Not everyone is, so academic in some regards that he wants to just constantly have the Bible reading and go very deep in exegesis and so on. So you need to provide different platforms for people to learn. Have all these different learning methods in there. And so I realized actually that the program is not as important as I thought it would be. So it has to be excellent, and logistics has to be excellent. People need to sleep and have good food and fellowship, but actually the time of giving them space to meet, be among friends, and learning from each other is just as important, which actually is quite stressful sometimes for us, as event managers. We focus so much on just one thing, and actually they focus on another. So I think it's understanding the youth culture and seeing, okay, what makes them fly in the end. What speaks to their hearts and not to my agenda, maybe.
Okay, Evi, could I ask you at this point? Okay, I'm embarking on event management. I'm new to this. Or my church is stepping out and doing something bigger than before. And what are your, hey, here's where to start. Here are the key things you need to be aware of as you embark upon this. What advice do you give me?
Yeah, probably various things come to my mind. One is to analyze the context. What is the motivation why you want to do an event?
Okay.
You know, is it just to make a name for your own brand, or you know, is it to bring people to faith, or you know, why would you use so much of resources to do that? And then so you have the target audience, and then the next thing I think is you have to know what is the mission statement. You know, will it be a one-off thing, or is it actually part of a long-term future plan? You know, so because I think events should be embedded into something. So then I think when you think, okay, this is why we do that, we have a progress there. If God leads, we're gonna do it again, and I don't know, 2 years or whatever. Then you know what are the measurements in between, so that you look at your outcomes and you define what you think is important. You want to see as an outcome. So I'm not talking about finances, but you need to break even. You know, but what are the things you have to do to see that happen? So, and plan action points. You know, also action points even at the event for them. So if you want to focus on discipleship, so you need to role model this. You need to give them some experience in that already during the conference, a taste somehow of something.
Okay. And I'm planning my event. Who do I need to have with me? Who needs to be in my team to pull off a successful event?
Yeah. Hopefully many.
Many, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think to integrate as many as you can, you just get a core team to get your event planning, that is good, but I always think the more people buy into it, even when they start serving, the more impact you can have, because they're going to bring their friends and so on. So sometimes we have events where you have like equal numbers of service team as well as participants. So it's a bit uneven, but I think they just want to serve because they love the atmosphere and so on. So it's trying to see that you have people on your team who are, you know, very good in organizational skills. You need some who are driven by the vision, and with the vision they're excellent motivators.
Okay.
And then you need someone who is good in media, you know, getting that advertisement out. What are the channels this event should use to reach another generation? And then have someone there, you know, detailers who love to plan registration, and some of the guys who are, you know, into program, some who like to deal with artists and speakers, so that you have, you know, the logistics, the program, the finances, and yeah, and even the communications in there to say, you know, that how can this all link together? And I think the more people you have on the team in various maybe sub departments or small teams on that, then the more likely that people buy into that.
And I'm picturing now I'm running my event. Let's say it's a fairly big event. I've got a big team. I'm reckoning there could be a lot of stress points during the event. You must have encountered that. How do you keep your team sane?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I try to do before is that we have some communication rules, the way we work with each other, that we try to, even if there's conflict and stress arising, that we address that within the team and not talk outside, you know, and maybe, I don't know, go to the board or the pastor, or, you know. So it's trying to resolve things in the team. And I try to be very careful that we appreciate the team also before and after. Because I think the more you invest into your team, because I mean, I want everyone on my team, no matter what event or so I do, I want them to become better leaders through having been with me. So where does that kind of training I offer them also before, so that they feel adequately equipped as team leaders at the event, you know. And so then we have daily meetings during the event, you know, and sometimes even in various departments, and say, how's it going, you know? You feel the pulse, you know, say, you know, is your heart still beating, are you okay? So that also teams can, you know, from other departments can help each other. And so trying to avoid the crisis. But then also we have a crisis management team, you know, saying, okay, what happens if something happens up on the stage, or, I don't know, someone falls sick, and, you know, there are different ways. So we actually have some of that actually in writing, to say, okay, if that happens, go to that person. And so necessary, just because, I mean, not necessarily because I'm the event director, maybe, not everything needs to go to me, you know. So I have different people in different places who will first take the beating and, you know, sort out the situation. If it is not controllable, then it might go another level. But we're trying to have as less hierarchy as you can have in that, so that the authority is delegated. And then also I have a party afterwards. I love whatever I do. I love to have an appreciation of the volunteers afterwards, and even with thank you cards and a meeting again, you know, and also then laughing about our mistakes, you know.
Okay.
I mean, share the joys and the failures. Say, what can we learn from this? Let's celebrate that we have been weak in that case, because that gives us the way of improving for another time.
Right.
But I think it's a journey again.
Yeah.
You don't just turn up and you go the extra mile. It is because I have gone the extra mile for them that they're
Yeah.
going to go the extra mile for me.
Okay. Wow, thank you. And just one last final question. Is it true that chocolate is a key aid to this process?
Totally. Well, I think probably that depends on the cultural context, but chocolate works wonders for me, for my own soul, but also it's that appreciation to others.
Fantastic. Evi, it's been a real joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.